We know through many studies that people who use the outdoors are predominantly white. This includes birders. People of color say it can feel intimidating to go into the woods when you're not likely to see anyone who looks like you. Some report actual discrimination. The end of May was Black Birders Week, an attempt for people of color to reclaim the outdoors and say, hey, we belong here too. That's today's story of the day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from the Wild Center in Tupper Lake, dedicated to strengthening visitors' connections to the natural world. More at wildcenter.org.
Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Monday, June 9th. First up, the state budget that lawmakers approved last month is 5% higher than last year's budget. According to Comptroller Tom DiNapoli, New York plans to spend more on school aid and Medicaid. The budget hike comes at a time when the state could lose more than $10 billion in federal funding, according to Governor Kathy Hochul. DiNapoli is calling on state officials to stabilize its finances and build reserves. The comptroller is also warning that tax collections are likely to decrease and could be further affected by economic uncertainty. He says New York has not taken any significant cost containment measures to address federal cuts. Members of a powerful state legislative caucus are calling on lawmakers to pass a slate of prison reform bills before the end of the legislative session. Jung-Yoon Han reports for the New York Public News Network.
The Black, Puerto Rican, Hispanic, and Asian Legislative Caucus endorsed a package of more than 20 previously introduced bills related to criminal justice just days before lawmakers head out for recess. The bills include expanding parole eligibility, increasing prison oversight, and broadening access to substance abuse and mental health programs for people in prison. Assemblymember Mikhail Salaj leads the caucus. The Nassau County Democrat says the group created the package in response to the recent beating deaths of Robert Brooks and Messiah Nantwi, two black men who were incarcerated at neighboring prisons in Oneida County.
Their deaths underscore our urgent demand for truth, oversight, and systematic change. And as the legislature approaches the close of session, our calls grow louder.
Lawmakers have less than 2 weeks until the session wraps up. In Albany, I'm Jung-Yoon Han for the New York Public News Network.
It's peak nesting season for birds in the North Country. A great time to grab your binoculars and listen for birdsong. In Lake Placid, birders from around the Northeast recently gathered to celebrate Black Birders Week. It's part of a broader effort to make birding more accessible and inclusive. David Escobar stopped by the event and brings us a story.
Rain soaks through our clothes as we walk along the trails at John Brown Farm. A chorus of birds is singing above us, but the steady pitter-patter of raindrops makes it hard to pick out anything. That's until Stephen Roundtree begins mimicking bird calls.
What's really fun about chickadees is they'll have this third call, which is like a warning call or a seat call, because it sounds like seat. It's a one-note call.
Roundtree is an avid birder from New York City. He's in Lake Placid to lead a group of about a dozen amateur bird watchers. He uses his voice and an app on his phone to help the group identify birds by their call and appearance. But he says the outing is about more than learning to classify birds.
What I think I try to emphasize when I'm out there is just treating it as an experiential thing. And I try not to be clinical, because you can say, like, well, you saw this stripe on this part means that it must be this, and let's go to our dichotomous key or what have you. But you can still admire that this thing is belting out its call in the rain, and just appreciate that.
This birdwalk is part of Black Birders Week, a national campaign that started in 2020 after a black man was falsely accused of threatening behavior while birdwatching in New York City's Central Park. The event at John Brown Farm was co-organized by SUNY ESF Ranger School professor Vanessa Rojas. She says birding in a group setting helps build confidence for beginners.
It's way less intimidating than going out somewhere where everyone's like, oh, have these big fancy cameras and don't want to answer your questions, or I feel like it's a way to not feel ashamed that you don't know what the bird's name is or something.
Rojas first started birding in city parks back home in Flint, Michigan. She says those early experiences taught her to slow down in the outdoors and take in the sounds around her.
I feel like a lot of times hiking is having this end game of getting to the top of the mountain and back, and birding is very different, where you stop and you listen.
That resonates with Giselle Pemberton, who helped lead the outing. She remembers the joy of being surrounded by tropical birds as a child growing up in Trinidad.
Growing up in the Caribbean, there were birds everywhere. I always thought they're pretty, they're cute, and they're definitely colorful. And so I always watched a bird, but I never considered it birding.
But Pemberton's mindset about birding changed when she moved to Brooklyn. She says birdwatchers in her local park didn't look like her. White people make up the majority of leaders and participants in outdoor activities across the U.S. Pemberton says that lack of representation makes some people of color feel like they aren't welcome.
I feel comfortable in spaces in the outdoors because it's all I ever knew. Whereas for a community of people who were historically told they can't be in that space, it's a different experience for them.
The point of Black Birders Week is to shift that narrative and build a more diverse community of bird enthusiasts. Tamara Jolly is the Community Initiatives Manager for the Adirondack Diversity Initiative, which sponsored the event in Lake Placid. She says when people of color learn skills from someone who looks like them, it can take away a lot of the pressure that comes with trying something new.
I'm not sure that there's a name for it. I'm not sure I can put words to that, like unspoken energy that you get when you see someone that looks like you. Open those doors to say, yeah, come on in. You can do it too. There's no barrier here. The barrier's in our head.
That welcoming spirit is what drew Mary Hayes Gordon to the Bird Walk. She traveled over 3 hours from Utica to be part of it.
Sometimes it's just kind of nice to be around people who kind of look like you, but it's also a chance to be with people who are also interested in, hey, we're going to learn something new, or hey, I can teach you this, or we can talk about this. And it brings people together that maybe normally wouldn't have come.
Along the trail, the group comes to a sudden stop. They quiet down and listen in for the high-pitched call of a Blackburnian warbler.
So let's see if we can hear it again, but...
That's Christian Cooper's favorite bird.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I mean, they rule.
Beyond a new community, Carol Cooper says she's learned new techniques to identify birds that'll enhance her outdoor experiences when she travels home to Rochester.
That's a whole broad spectrum of enjoyment that I can now venture out into and start to get even more out of something that I had been doing for a while.
Cooper didn't see many birds in the rain, but she says she feels a vicarious sense of joy watching other people peer through their binoculars.
I can share in other people's experiences, so if someone else standing next to me just saw something, even though I may not be skilled enough yet to have seen it or notice it, I know that it's something I'm going to be able to do.
Cooper is saving that feeling and her new birding skills for a sunnier day. David Escobar, North Country Public Radio at John Brown Farm in Lake Placid.
David Escobar is a Report for America Corps reporter. He reports on diversity issues in the Adirondacks through a partnership between North Country Public Radio and Adirondack Explorer. We have more news all the time on our website, ncpr.org. Music today by Evan Veenstra of Gananoque, Ontario, and Gretchen Kohler and Daniel Kelly of Potsdam. I'm David Sommerstein, North Country Public Radio.